So it's been a little while since I last posted a video on this channel, and I decided a while ago to take a little bit of a break after many attempts of making videos, sitting down in front of the camera with something to say, but nothing really to give. I found that I couldn't express what I was trying to say. Like I was trying to pour out of my cup, but there was nothing to pour out. The past few months have been weird for all of us and for me as well. I found during that time that I was almost like to use a biblical reference, a house built on sand. My foundation was kind of lacking, and I was finding that in my attempts to make video content, to talk about stuff, to pour out of my cup, which really wasn't being filled, I was missing something more foundational to who I am. And I needed to get back to reestablishing myself. Because these past few months, at least for me, has felt like this extended in-between period where I was sent home from college on my spring break with the idea that I was going to come back here for the summer, and things just kept spiraling and never ended up coming back. So it's been kind of just this long waiting period, thinking that eventually this new season of my life is going to start, but never knowing when. The past 3 or 4 months has been this season of waiting, this long in-between for me that kind of, because of that waiting, lacked some purpose, lacked some direction, because essentially the seasons of my life as I expected them to be were messed up and not the way that I thought things were going to go. But luckily, over the past month or so, I was able to start getting back on track, in part, I think, because I've had this end date where I am now back at school and I'm back in the season that I expected to happen long ago. So in this past month or so, I've been able to reestablish myself a bit, like I needed to get back into reading more, a lot of good books in the past month, praying more, getting back to my foundations. And I've been able to look back and see all the ways that I've grown in ways I haven't really recognized in this long in-between period. And that's what I want to share today. 5 things. First thing, something that I generally put a lot of importance to, but I think kind of just didn't over the past few months, is being healthy in all 3 aspects: physically, mentally, and spiritually. For the better part of May and June, I was dealing with a little bit of a knee injury that kind of sidelined me from exercising and taking care of my physical health the way that I normally would like to. And I noticed that it caused my spiritual and mental health to fall off as well, because all 3 of them, spiritual, mental, and physical health, are in balance. You need to take care of all 3. So I was able to look at that more and figure out what that means for me in all 3 aspects. So physically, I need to exercise like intense daily. I'm an athlete. I've always been an athlete my whole life. And I find I have a lot of just energy that I need to expend on a daily basis in like intense exercise, along with eating healthy. So the balance of those 2 for my physical health. Mental health, reading is something that I find is really good. Consuming positive, good things, not only faith-based books I started to read more, but like heroic fiction books. Getting back into reading some of those. Some of the books that I read growing up, like the Percy Jackson series or like the Harry Potter series, 2 series that I read a lot growing up, like heroic books that just fill you with this sense of, I don't know how to describe it, like a feeling of being drawn to greatness, of doing something great with your life. Just reading stuff and spending less time on social media too. Those 2 things were really good for my mental health. And spiritually, praying. And that's the second thing on the list is the more I pray, and the better I feel. Prayer can often be like getting into running. If you're someone who has never run before, a mile feels almost impossible. But if you're a seasoned runner, running a mile is nothing. You can run a mile in your sleep. Same thing with prayer. The more that you get into prayer, the easier it gets and the more fulfilling it gets. A seasoned runner enjoys running a lot more than someone who never runs. And for a bunch of months over this past in-between period, my prayer life has been not good. And I got into praying more, and I started to build a better routine, read some good books about prayer. I started getting into liturgy of the hours, praying the rosary, which is something that I haven't done much of. Music, Eucharistic adoration, and journaling is another thing. That's number 3. Journaling is so good. It's something that I used to do every single day back, and I stopped probably about 2 years ago. Don't really know why, but it's something I started getting back into over the past month or so. It's so good. Provides a place for you to write down your thoughts, do a sort of daily examine type thing at the end of the day. Look back on your day, what you thought about, what you prayed about, how you can improve in the coming day. It's really good for self-understanding. It helps me to be a little more aware of the things I'm thinking about and the things that I ought to pursue every day. 4th thing, just a brief one to note, kind of random, but I think worth noting, is I found that I've started wanting less stuff. Just kind of less material things, less noise. I've just been finding, I think about reading some Franciscan spirituality a little more, but being less attracted to material things, kind of more attracted to like a material poverty, something I've grown into. I think because it creates more space in my life, the less distractions there are. Being at home, like in my childhood room at home, there's so much stuff all over the walls. There's like stuff just piled under my bed and on my desk and everywhere. I'm living with 5 other people, a bunch of dogs, and just noise and stuff. And just in general, I think drawn more to less. And lastly, number 5, and maybe the biggest one, is the realization, or the better realization, that I'm a sinner and I need to fight. It's easy to say that we're all sinners and that we all fall short and all of that. It's just a natural part of the human condition. But it's a different thing to sit and acknowledge our vices and the particular ways that we fall short, to acknowledge them and to actively do something to overcome them, which is something that I've come face to face with. I've acknowledged a little more over the past few months, and it's something I'm more actively working against and pursuing virtue, acknowledging the vices and pursuing virtue, praying for grace, making good decisions, environmental factors, fighting the fight against our sin. I'm a sinner. We all are. I am. Acknowledging that more personally is another big thing. So those are some things I've learned over this in-between, the long in-between. I think part of the reason I want to make this video, one thing I want to leave you with, is that I'm sure that there are other people out there who are feeling that this season, this drawn out, whatever you want to call it, since March, the circumstances we're in, has just been this long in-between that doesn't seem like it's going to have some end, and maybe you haven't figured out how to adapt, and maybe you're still just waiting. I want to affirm and encourage you to make this a self-reflective season, however long it ends up being, but to encourage and give you hope that on the other side, at some point, you'll be able to hopefully look back and see the ways that you've grown over the past number of months, and see the way that I think God is working through all of this. At least for me, I learned a lot about myself in the in-between, and I hope that the same can be said for you.